What is up, world? It's your boy Tan, and you are listening to the Wonton Wealth Podcast. Here, I'm going to unravel anything and everything commercial real estate related. And more importantly, we're going to add abundant value. So if you're ready, buckle up your eardrums. Yo, welcome back, friends, welcome back, family, new time listeners, etc. Today, I have just hit a pretty big milestone, so I want to talk about something that, in my opinion, does not get talked about nearly enough in commercial real estate. That is this. In commercial real estate, you can make a fuck ton of dollars, fuck ton of money, and you can lose your reputation in that same deal. And if that happens, you really didn't win. You might have gotten a check. You may have gotten a fee. You were probably in control of the deal. You may have gotten the notoriety, the credit for it. But if the way you got it costs you trust, it costs you a relationship, it costs you your name, then eventually you're going to realize that what looked like a win was actually one of the most expensive losses you could have ever gotten. Because commercial real estate is a people business. Yes, you're going to see numbers. Yes, there are returns. Yes, there are structures, legal documents, a ton of bullshit with debt, lease negotiations, cap rates, timelines, etc. But underneath all of that, this business is built on the people, it's built on the relationships, and it's built on the conversations throughout those relationships with those people. It's built on credibility, it's built on trust. And if people stop trusting you, the game's going to change for you. You can recover from a bad deal. You can recover from a missed opportunity. You can recover from a property that didn't perform the way that you had hoped. But if you have a broken reputation, that is almost impossible to recover from. So today, I want to talk about integrity over income. I want to talk about scarcity versus abundance. I want to talk about betrayal in a relationship business. I want to talk about why reputation is the real ROI. Because if you are building in commercial real estate, if you're building in any business, if you are raising capital, if you are working with brokers, if you are partnering with other investors, if you are trying to build something that lasts, this is going to matter more than anything fucking else. So I want to start with a personal story. And this story probably started about 2, possibly 3 years ago. I've mentioned previously that I've reached a milestone, and you will see why, but call it 2-3 years ago, I was really tight with my loan broker. He was one of the guys that I met when I was on my residential journey. I practically brought every deal that I could think of to him. And a lot of times his rates were better, and I worked with him because, we were friends. And I figured, even if you were a little bit higher, I think you have my interest in mind because we were friends. He brought me a commercial real estate deal, which was a industrial property. And he brought it to me because he has a lot of relationships with banks that he communicates with because he does business with them, right? Again, he's a loan broker. And he brought it to me probably because of our friendship, probably because he knew that I was in commercial real estate, and probably because I was egging him to bring me any deals that he finds in the grapevine where the lender is having issues with it or it's potentially going to foreclosure, etc. So eventually he brings me this deal, and I look at it and I really liked it. I didn't even know the numbers behind it. I liked it because of its location. And so I communicated with the seller for several months, trying to figure out a number, going to go look at the deal, the whole nine, right? And eventually we got it under contract. And once we did, I brought on another partner who was very familiar with the market where this property was located. Had a lot of the construction background as well. So I figured, it would make everything a lot smoother if someone else were to come on and had those attributes. So I brought him on, and I think the loan broker friend was a little bit pissed off by that because he wanted to control how the structure of the deal was, et cetera, et cetera. And I get it. That would have been my fault, right? However, I would have done something to make it right. By that, I mean, lowering my percentage or what have you in the deal, in the structure, in order to make the deal still work. After we got it under contract, we all had a meeting. He brought somebody on as well who was and through our meetings, that guy was supposed to be the capital raiser. It's like, okay, fine. And then the conversation came up to what the percentages should be in the structure of the partnership. From there, he proposed a split with four in which he got 30, I got 30, the person I brought on got 30, while the capital raiser got 10% of the GP side. I was like, that's not typically how a structure works for someone just finding a deal, but I'll go with it, right? That was fine and dandy. We're under contract. We're going through due diligence, blah, blah, blah. Actually, I'm sorry. This was before we were under contract. And this is while I was still in communication with the seller, trying to figure out terms and negotiate the contract and price. Sign it. So a little bit of time goes by. He calls me. My loan broker friend calls me, and we're on the phone for probably 2 hours. And he goes, conversation was him wanting more out of the deal. I said, well, that's not going to work because all you really did was you found the deal. We're the ones, I myself, as well as the partner that I brought on, are going to be the ones doing the day-to-day handling of the asset. And obviously, the 10% to his friend was for the capital raising, right? The down payment and the capital reserves for the project without any issues, which I think 10% was fair. Fine, great. And throughout this conversation, his main thing was wanting more out of the deal. He's trying to preface it and frame it by saying, what did we decide on the split? I said, well, you mentioned 30, 30, 30, 10. I was like, so I thought we were in agreement already on that. That's not really a lot of the deal. Again, he's trying to frame it to the point where he could get more out of the deal. I said, look, listen, I don't think that's fair. And I'm more than happy to hand over this project back to you, and you can do whatever the hell you want with it. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze for doing all of the work for a lot less of the pie. And if that's the case, if you really want more, here, take 100% of it, and you do whatever the hell you want with it. I told him that, and essentially I called his bluff because he has never managed or operated an industrial property nor a non-residential commercial asset up to this point. I'm sure he's had smaller tenants, but when it comes to, triple net leases and tenants of a larger caliber, he has not had any experience there. So he was like, no, I want to work with you guys, blah, 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 all this, all that. So in essence, the agreement was still 30, 30, 30, 10. At least that's what I understood it as, because nothing's changed based on that 2-hour conversation. And so we got this property under contract. We're working through due diligence, blah, blah, blah. Finally close it, got the money raised. And actually, there's a small story behind that. I was actually out of the country for roughly 5 weeks while we were under due diligence. And luckily, my partner, the contractor friend that I brought in, was able to kind of manage the due diligence process in my absence, which was phenomenal. And the capital raise supposedly was going fine. They had all these soft commits. Great. But those soft commits really ended up being no commits, even though it was at the amount that we thought we needed. So I came back with literally a week left before closing, and none of the capital has been raised. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I had to pretty much pick up the phone and call everybody that I knew to help raise that capital. Whatever. And then at the closing table during this week, there was also a couple other changes. And the biggest one was that the operating agreement that was sent was completely changed. Now everybody, the 4 people, myself included, were 25% partners. And never did we have a conversation around where this happened. So they pretty much just switched it up on me, right? And again, the capital raiser got more of the pie. So I don't know where the disconnect was, but things were pretty much just changed behind my back. Whatever. So at this point, I was already kind of butthurt about the 2 hour conversation that myself and my loan broker friend had. And, you know, I won't go into the details of that conversation, but in short, he wanted more because he thought he could provide more to the the operations itself, back end books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why he figured that he could have more of the stake. And then now this happens to where at the closing table where the operating agreement shows that our percentages were changed. And I am pissed off livid at this point because none of this was ever communicated to me. And I'm sitting here, I'm trying to calm myself down before I even sign anything. And I'm like, well, the property should make some capital. It should make some money. I already have my investors' money in here. Is it really worth it to make a big deal out of this? Reluctantly, I signed and we progressed with the property. And so with the property in and of itself, myself and the partner that I brought on, we've been in business, we've been operating this property for, call it 2 years or so, and recently just closed on it, which is the milestone that I was talking about, which was phenomenal. I wanted to get out of this thing super, super badly. During those 2 years, myself and my partner were the main operators, and we did we did everything. The capital raiser friend really only raised, I think, maybe 100,000, maybe 150,000. Not sure how much there. And then the loan broker friend, I haven't heard from him in 2 years. He hasn't, I don't think he knows what's going on with his property. So that's that. And then, I've had issues with my other partner as well, to where the operation side is just lackluster. Probably do another episode on partnerships, probably the week after or sometime in the near future, on just general partnerships, how to structure it, what to look for, things like that. Let me know if that would be valuable to you guys, but I'll plan on doing it. But my point is, throughout this whole process, my loan broker friend, quote unquote friend, who was supposed to be my friend, ended up being a money hungry person, right? We had the trust there. The trust was kind of assumed. It was implied, right? That throughout our conversation, I anticipated that he would be somebody of integrity. And I've known him for probably 2-3 years prior to this deal. But just because of money, he went out of his way to get every dollar that he could. So the one thing here, obviously, is that you can't really trust everybody. When money gets involved, you really can't trust everybody. Have everything on paper, even if you are really good at reading people, characterizing people, or have a really high EQ. And again, in this situation, for me, what was disappointing was not simply that everything didn't go my way. It was that because the trust was broken. And honestly, disappointment hits louder than any anger out there. Because anger says, I can't believe that fucking happened. While disappointment says, I thought you were somebody else, someone else. And I think that's what hurts the most in this business when integrity gets tested. It's not always the money. Obviously the money shows how you progress and if you're doing something well. But in order to continuously grow, you need good people beside you. And it's also shitty that that I've realized that someone that I genuinely trusted was willing to damage a relationship just for a short-term win. Maybe it was about the commission. Maybe it was about the money. Maybe it was about notoriety or experience. Actually, it can't be experience because he didn't touch this property for 2 years. And maybe it was just greed. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Whatever the surface explanation behind it was, the deeper issue is still the same. A short-term mindset made a long-term decision. And a lot of people, I think, in business underestimate how much that reveals. Because when someone shows you that they're willing to compromise trust for immediate gain, they're telling you how they think. They're telling you how they make decisions. They are telling you what happens when values and money collide. And it looks like money is going to win. And when you see that, you really can't unsee it. What really stayed with me from that experience was this: the actual transaction mattered less than the principle behind it. Yes, obviously the deal mattered. It's a multi-million-dollar deal. Yes, the economics mattered. Yes, the outcome mattered. But what mattered more was the reminder that in a relationship-driven business, betrayal travels a lot farther than profit. People are going to remember how you made them feel. People are going to remember whether you were loyal. People are going to remember whether your word meant something. And they're going to remember whether you protected the relationship or you sacrificed it. And that experience in and of itself forced me to think much more deeply about the kind of business I want to build and the kind of people that I want around me and the kind of reputation that compounds over time. And in my next podcast talking about partnerships, I'm going to give you some real world examples that I have personally with my business partners now. Hopefully you guys get some value out of that. So stay tuned. It'll probably come out in the next week or two, or if not, again in the near future. But here is the bigger lesson, and this is where I realized something. A lot of bad behavior in commercial real estate does not come from strategy. It comes from scarcity. And scarcity says this. It says, if I don't take this, someone else will. Or if I don't take this now, I might not ever get a shot or another shot. If I don't control this deal, I'm going to fucking lose. If someone else benefits, somehow I'm going to lose. Scarcity is going to turn every interaction into a competition. It turns partners into threats. It turns opportunities into panic. And it turns relationships into transactions. And when someone operates from scarcity, they will justify almost anything. They're going to justify cutting corners. They're going to justify being vague. They're going to justify breaking trust or rewriting history or keeping more than they earned or letting you know that they've done more work on something and they deserve to be compensated. They're going to justify being disloyal because in their mind, survival is on the line. But what I want to let you know is that abundance thinks differently. Abundance is going to say, there's going to be another deal. There's going to be way more opportunities. I don't need to betray someone just to win. I don't need to fuck them over just to win. I don't need to force an outcome that is not aligned with our interests. I don't need to damage a relationship just for a short-term payday. If I do the right thing consistently, the right opportunities are going to keep showing up. And my friend did not have that. He was willing to take a short-term payday, and the payday was just maybe a couple $100,000 for a longer-term relationship. I guess that's what I'm worth. And one thing I want to mention is that being abundant is not about being passive. It's about being rooted. It's about understanding that your value is not dependent on one single transaction. It's about knowing that if you're truly good at what you do, if you build real relationships, if you create real value, if your name actually means something, then you do not have to act like every deal is your last meal. Scarcity is going to create desperation. Abundance is going to create discernment. Scarcity is going to say, take it now. Abundance says, does this align? Scarcity is going to make people smaller. Abundance is going to make people steadier. And in commercial real estate, the people who think they're winning through scarcity often don't. Because they realized that the long-term damage that they're doing is going to be dog shit. And again, with your relationship on the line, this business is small. This community that we have in Cincinnati is small. People are going to talk and patterns are going to get noticed. The moment you fuck something up, everybody in the community is going to know. You know, some rooms that they're not in, their names are still going to be brought up. And that is why reputation is invisible equity. You can't always see it on a balance sheet. You can't always point to it in a pitch deck. You can't always assign a direct dollar amount to it in the moment. But it's there. It's the reason why someone returns your call. It's the reason someone brings you into a deal. It's the reason an investor wires money with confidence. It's the reason brokers send you deals and they trust you. And it's the reason a partner will give you the benefit of the doubt. It's the reason opportunities find you without having to chase it. That is what invisible equity looks like. And just like real equity, it compounds. but it only compounds if you're willing to protect it. So if I had to boil this down to one of the biggest mistakes people make in real estate, it would be this. It would be that they have a scarcity mindset versus an abundant mindset. They chase short-term wins that cost them the long-term trust. They chase commission, they chase control, they chase ego, recognition, notoriety, and in the process, they really lose sight of the actual game. The real game is not squeezing every last dollar out of every transaction or interaction. The real game is building a reputation that keeps creating opportunities for years to come. That's the fucking game. And that is why I think so many people miscalculate. They think the win is in the fucking check. They think after getting the check and you take a selfie with it on social media and people liking your shit, they think that's the fucking win. No, the check is only part of the win. The bigger win is whether people still want to work with you after the deal is over. The bigger win is whether or not your investors trust you more. And the bigger win is whether your partners are feeling protected still. Anyone can get a good cycle. Anyone can be lucky on a deal, but not everyone can build a reputation that survives hard conversations, changing markets, misprojections, legal complexity, or even conflict. That is going to take integrity. Character is still going to matter more than the paperwork when it comes to long-term outcomes. People do business with people they like and trust. And people stay in business with people who are consistent. And people are going to refer business to people whose integrity has been tested and proven. That is a real currency. Let's talk about integrity a little bit and what it actually looks like in practice. Because integrity actually sounds great in theory. The real question is, what does it look like when it costs you something? That is where integrity becomes real. Integrity is not just being honest when it's easy. It's not being generous when there's no trade-off. It's not just doing the right thing when everybody's watching. It's what you do when keeping your word costs you money. It's what you do when honoring a commitment is inconvenient. It's what you do when cutting a corner would benefit you. It's what you do when nobody would know except for you. That's the test. So what does it actually look like? It looks like sending a referral to the right person, even if you could try to keep it for yourself. It looks like honoring a verbal commitment because your word matters, even if you later realize you could have negotiated something way better. And I have a really good story on keeping your word, and I'll share that in a partnership episode in the future once again. But it looks like protecting investors instead of protecting your ego. It looks like passing on a deal that doesn't really align with your values, even if you're tired of waiting and want something to happen. It looks like communicating clearly or being transparent when something changes. It looks like remembering that the relationship is often worth more than the immediate revenue. There is a difference between protecting your own interests and violating someone else's trust. Eventually, people learn who they can trust. Eventually, people are going to compare notes. They're going to talk. And patterns are going to become the reputations. Remember this line. Your reputation walks into rooms before you do. Your name is going to either create confidence or it's going to create hesitation. And every decision you make is going to add to one of those two buckets. Again, so that's why I believe so strongly in the long game. The long game is not going to be glamorous. It's not always going to feel exciting in the moment. And it's going to look shitty in some days. But the long game wins. It wins because trust compounds. It wins because credibility compounds. People remember character. And your network only gets stronger when your name is clean. So to wrap this up, if you take nothing else from this episode, let it be this. In commercial real estate, your reputation is not separate from your business. It is your business. Your integrity is not a side issue. It is not a branding concept nor a motivational phrase. It is an asset, probably your most expensive asset. And like any asset, it can grow or it can be damaged. Every conversation grows it or damages it. Every deal is going to grow it or damage it. And every commitment kept will grow it. Every trust that you fuck up is going to damage it. Stop treating people like stepping stones. Again, this is not just about the properties. This is about people. It's about whether your word means something. It's about whether your partner feels safe with you, if your investors feel respected, safe as well. And it's about whether or not your peers trust you when deals get messy, not just when everything is easy as shit. And if you're playing the long game, if you are building something real, if you want to last in this business, then I would recommend choosing integrity over income every single time. Not because it sounds good, but because in the end, it is the more profitable decision. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone else who is building in this space. Share it with a broker, an investor, a partner, a friend, someone who's learning commercial real estate. I don't give a shit. And also, please make sure to leave a review. If you do, let me know. I might send you a book or something. But cheers. Until next time. And that's a wrap. If you've made it this far, that means you've listened to the entire episode. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening from. And if you've learned something or found it useful, share it with one of your homies. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm pretty active on IG. My handle is pro_TANH. Reach out, let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, or what you want to hear about in the future. I'm here to tailor this to you. Until next time.